Texas has to travel to Mississippi State, and I think that is a trap. And with 2 losses already on the season and only 1 in the conference, get those cowbells ready, boys and girls, because I think this will mark Texas, Sarkisian, and Arch's 3rd loss on the season, officially eliminating from playoff contention, officially eliminating them from SEC play. Again, I'm going to keep punching myself in the face. I predicted something completely different from Texas. But now that I've had a chance to watch them over a couple of weeks, I watched them. Who did they play? They played Kentucky last week, right?
Yes.
Knockdown, drag-out game.
Ask Georgia about going on the road to Kentucky.
Kentucky is a tough place to be in. And so with that, another really rough, tough environment for Arch to be in. Yeah, that's who I got on upset watch this week. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Dre. I'm back with Ant and Finn, and this is the Elephant in the Room podcast. This is the middle of the week prediction show. Of course, you guys just saw an episode a couple days ago where we talked about last week's games with Bama and a couple others. But now we want to go ahead.
We still smoking them.
We still smoking on the volunteer pack, but 24-hour mindset. So it's time to start talking about next week. And we already kind of viewed this, but now we want to go ahead and deep dive into it. So this week we got South Carolina. It's a 2:30 kick over in Williams-Brice. I always want to say it backwards, Bryce-Williams, but Williams-Brice, Columbia, South Carolina. You mentioned the other day, Ant, that it's a good thing that it's not a night game, and that some of the intricate details of college football, such as Enter the Sandman, for some fan bases like South Carolina, it can't boost them up anymore. A couple years ago, we traveled to Williams-Brice, and we saw one of the most phenomenal plays in all of college football from our running back at that time. But this is a different time, different year. And so coming in with a head full of steam, a win streak, 4 straight wins over ranked SEC opponents. I also saw where ESPN teased the bracket, which I think as of right now would give us a bye and really an easier path. We don't want to get into that quite yet. Right now, we just want to talk about Alabama and South Carolina. South Carolina, who's coming off a pretty brutal loss at home to Oklahoma, now has to, still, to me, I know we didn't win the SEC last year, but face the king of the SEC. So now that we're back at the top, presumably, and heading in the right direction, what you guys got as far as for the game this week?
I'm going to say this. Hey, did you know? I didn't know this. This is their homecoming week. We played at a school that schools used to have us on the schedule as homecomings. Shout out to Prattville High. And you remember what we used to do to them homecomings, them senior nights?
It was disrespectful.
We did them bad.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say, what we saw last week, as far as, from the stadium all the way down to the play on the field, not going to see that again this week from this team. This is one of the worst offenses. Excuse me, I'm adding letters and stuff. But this is one of the worst offenses in the SEC. So, but this week, this might be one of the best offenses we face because we all know how teams get up to play Alabama, i.e. the week 1 champs. And now look at them, fell off like a bad bag of dope. So, but this team is night and day difference from last year. Last year, this team looked like a strong playoff team headed into this season with a lot of momentum. And then Vandy came into town, took the wind out of them. They went to Missouri. Missouri kind of did them a little bad, even though they were I think they were up in that game at one point, but Missouri finished them off. And then Oklahoma came into town and put them out their misery as well. But here come the Tide. I expect us. It's not a noon kickoff, so it won't be disadvantage Bama because we know how it is. I just hate when Alabama has to play at noon, and it won't be a night kickoff to where you get that crowd all loud and ready to go with the with that Sandstorm song. Excuse me. 3:30 Eastern kickoff, 2:30 Central Time. Perfect time. I love the 2:30. I miss SEC on CBS, by the way, when it comes to the 2:30 kickoffs. But I expect us to get a jump on these guys early to where none of that won't be a factor. Like whoever the homecoming queen and king is, I feel sorry for you that you got to witness Alabama come out here and destroy your team. Whoever the grand marshal is for the parade, I hate this is the week you got to come back to the school to see your team basically get put down like a dead, like a dying dog. But it is what it is. This is what the SEC made. So, and we're here. But like I said, I expect Ty and company to have a big game. South Carolina, there's nothing that they really are strong at as far as offense. I mean, as far as like run game and passing game, as far as their offense. So I don't know what should we expect. They got Mike Shula calling plays and the fans want him out of there, first time. I remember when a certain school wanted him out of there. Hence the name of this show. But yeah, so we got things like that going for the South Carolina squad. But like I said, when you see that script A on the other sideline, all bets are off. Spread is different. Spread is at, I think it's 12.5, 13 Alabama. I expect us to cover, but is South Carolina gonna, follow suit and let us? I mean, I ain't gonna say let us, but is Alabama gonna do what they're supposed to do to get the jump? Because I do expect, the way this game looks on paper, I expect Alabama to get the jump on these guys, put them down early, and hopefully we get to see, our Austin Mack, Keelan Russell, and any other guys. Now, I will say, I feel like this is also a game, too, where we can kind of get this run game going. Like, I'm talking about big numbers in the run game. I'm talking about pushing almost 200 yards of rushing. And then as far as the pass game goes, Ty going to do what he do, but I want to see the receivers as a unit look like the old days with the rideouts where we almost had 3 receivers touching 100 yards. Like, I want to see basically a complete game as far as offense and defense go. Offense goes out here and scores 40+. Defense goes out here, gives up less than 10 points. Maybe they get that government-mandated opening drive touchdown that everybody gets on Alabama. But other than that, I predicted 52-7, and I'm going to stand by that. And my guy Finn, where you at, man? We waiting on you. We need you. Finn, come back.
I'll go ahead and
All right, take off, Dre. Take it.
I'm going to piggyback off what you said, because we've been talking about it the last couple of weeks. I'm not going to go with 52-7. I might go somewhere north of 35-14, somewhere in there. But more than anything, we've been talking about it. I've been talking about it. I want to see this, like you just said a couple of days ago, be the put-away game. We had a pretty decent, sizable lead in the Tennessee game, even with 6 minutes or so to go, but it didn't all the way feel like it was put away. Tennessee had a quick strike offense. South Carolina definitely doesn't have that. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago with Lenora Sellers. People got film on them, And just like the week 1 champs that we talked about, over time, after we played Florida State week 1, everybody went back and looked at old film of Gus, and they kind of had him figured out. So I say that to say, South Carolina, as far as what they can do, is already kind of figured out. So coming off a tough loss, coming off that loss to Missouri, some other detailed things, they kind of they have similarities to Florida to me right now as far as where they're headed. But more than anything, you want to see your guys go on the road. You said run offense. I want to see the run defense. I just talked about it the last 2 weeks. We've been getting gashed, and I keep saying that. I want to see the defense continue to propel themselves forward. I want to see them continue to show up. After we talk about it, week 1 was a terrible look. Everything since then has just been progressively better. Potential Heisman candidate winner. He is who he is. And we need him to keep being who he is. And considering that we have John Mateer in Oklahoma coming to Alabama in a couple weeks. And then this is a good game for us to go ahead and put it away early, like you said. Get some of our backups in, get some guys healthy. After this week, we have a bye, which is phenomenal before we play LSU at home, might I add, which is even more depending on what happens with LSU over the next couple of weeks. I don't think there's anything right now between LSU, and I'm not trying to look too far ahead, but there's nothing between LSU with Nussmeier and Oklahoma with Mateer and his injury that should stop us from running the table there. But right now we need to stay singular focused on South Carolina. The run game has to be going. The offense has to continue to be fluid. I would love to see another Caden Proctor trick play or something in there. I would love to see a screen, RPO, something for him this week But more than anything, Ty Simpson, Kalen DeBoer are both on a mission. And I don't think it's just them. I think Ryan Grubb and Kane Womack are on a mission this year to prove that last year was what it was. And everybody had low expectations after week 1, and now we're here. Like I said, 35-14, 21-point game. I think by halftime we should be up 21-0, somewhere in that area. And so it should be a great look overall from the team, from the squad. I'm wishing nothing but great health from us this week. We kind of know we facing bottom feeders. No pun intended, or no offense to anybody, but this is like when we played Lee and Lanier and JD back in the day. So these are the games that you don't want to see one of your starters go out there and get hurt playing around in a game like this. You know that you got Stanhope Wetumpka coming up next week. You don't want to see anybody go down and not be ready for that game. So more important, I want to see good health. I want to see great play, but I want to see good health. So that's all I got on that one.
Far as for Saturday, against South Carolina, the only thing that I'm looking for is a fast start. Even though South Carolina is not that good, I want to see Bama keep the same intensity that they've had for the past 4 weeks when they played Georgia, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Tennessee. If they come out with a fast start on the road at 2:30, go ahead and put it away early, and that'll be good. Offensively this week, I want to see them improve on stopping the run as well as containing Sellers. Even though South Carolina is not doing as good as they were last year, Sellers is still, the best player on the team. So if we're able to stop Sellers, then the game will definitely be over. Just continue putting points on the board. And also run a little bit more to actually get the run game going. So that way going into LSU, Oklahoma, even East Illinois, and going into the Iron Bowl, you finish out the season with the run game being the conversation of Alabama instead of it just being just the
Oh,
pass game, the wide receivers and Ty Simpson, make it balanced. Other than that, just to sum it up, just continue continue winning. That's really all I want to see.
I want to cap off before we move on to the next slate that we want to talk about as far as tonight. I want to mention that I went to this game last year in Tuscaloosa, and it was an 11 a.m. kick. Going back to your point, Ant, man, boy, let me tell you something. Even for me as a fan to get up,
That was fresh off that Vandiel too. So it was
yes,
a
it
little,
was.
the food was
It
a
was
little different.
very intense. It was very intense in the stadium. It was an 11 a.m. kick, and I remember getting up at 7, 8 o'clock and hitting the road and getting there and just kind of being drowsy through the game. The thing about being drowsy through a game like that is you don't realize how close the game really is until you realize how close the game really is. And I didn't realize it until the last few minutes. I didn't realize that we were that close to losing last year, off of almost a Hail Mary. But I don't think this is, for both teams, I don't think this is the same team as last year. I don't think South Carolina is good as they were last year. I don't think Alabama is as bad as they were last year. So roll tide to that. But nonetheless, we're gonna move on to a front runner, or not even a front runner anymore, but somewhat of a top slider in SEC and a bottom or middle tier. We're gonna talk about Ole Miss in Oklahoma. Ole Miss, who is coming off a disappointing loss in Georgia, and Oklahoma, who is really coming off a disappointing loss to Texas and an okay win over South Carolina. Can be a tricky game. Who's at home for that game? Is it Ole Miss? Is it
Oklahoma? It is Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
And they're
Yeah.
favored by 5.5.
Yes.
From what I just said.
A second tough game for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. I think it's something that they definitely got to bounce back and overcome the odds. Going on the road, going to Norman, playing on what time is kick on that one?
I want to say
Yeah.
this one is
It's at 11.
Woo.
Oh, yeah,
So-
because A&M ALSU at 6:30. Okay, yeah.
So we're adding layers there to this game. It's an 11 a.m. kick, Oklahoma. It's nowhere near the intensity as Georgia, but you got to, just like we talked about with Alabama, you got to bring that intensity. And this is what I think is going to separate Ole Miss and Lane from everybody else if he really does want to eventually end up in Mercedes in a couple months. But what we got as far as, wins, losses, how y'all feeling about that particular game?
I want to say this game right here, even though it's still like we still haven't got the official bracket and nothing like that, but this game can be a potential elimination game, at least from the initial when we get the initial playoff standings. So there's going to be a lot riding as far as power playing in the SEC and as far as a possibly a playoff spot. Now it's going to be a steep hill to climb to try to get one of the top two spots in the SEC because you got three to four teams right now. I want to say Ole Miss is fourth, but then you got Alabama who's undefeated, Georgia with one loss, and A&M who's undefeated both overall and conference. So this is basically an elimination game for the SEC and possibly the playoffs. Now, we've seen what Oklahoma's defense can do, but they're going to go as far as this quarterback and take them. And like this quarterback came back almost 3 weeks post-op from an injury that takes at least a month and a half, maybe 2 months to fully heal from. Like this, his throwing hand on his thumb. So, and then as far as Lane Kiffin, can you bring what you did in those first 3 quarters versus Georgia and actually finish the game out this week versus Oklahoma? Because you can score. We seen you can score. And can you make Oklahoma go punch for punch with you? Now, I will say this defense is a little bit better. I think Oklahoma's defense only gives up like 7 points a game. Granted, some of the competition hasn't been the best, but the stats are the stats. But are they able to prove that their defense is for real, or are they just been getting by playing lackluster competition? Because even the Texas team, I mean, they struggle on offense anyway, but they still scored 23. But I know one of the touchdowns was a punt return, and the defense was helping them out, putting Arch Manning in good positions. But can Oklahoma contain this Ole Miss offense, this firepower that they have? And can Ole Miss defense, because Ole Miss doesn't have, like they had a pretty solid defense last season. This defense is probably towards the bottom as far as defense goes in the SEC this season. Can they muster up enough stops to help their offense to kind of put this game away? Now, my prediction, I'm going to go Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss wins this game. I said 34-31. So I think Ole Miss wins this to stay alive as far as the SEC and the playoff race goes, because I still think Oklahoma, and even with an Oklahoma win, they still got to go to Alabama. They still got to play LSU for whatever it is. They still got to go. Well, no, they don't have to go to Death Valley. I'm sorry. They got LSU at home to close the season. So I think their biggest test, I haven't got their schedule pulled up. Anybody know any game that I know for Oklahoma is the next biggest game they have is possibly, I think, Alabama. So, but yeah, that's what I see. And as far as Ole Miss,
they got a tough slate ahead.
Yeah, Ole Miss. They're pretty much in the middle of that gauntlet. Yeah, Ole Miss is pretty much in the middle of their gauntlet.
They about to start their gauntlet.
Well, they actually started it last weekend. If you want to be honest, so
yeah, Oklahoma over the next couple games has Ole Miss, Tennessee, Bama, Missouri at home, and then finishing off with LSU at home. All 5 of those games, we're looking at a team right now.
Yeah, Oklahoma needs this game.
Oklahoma
I was definitely needs this game a little bit more.
We're looking at a team right now that is 6-1 overall, and in a couple weeks could be 6-6. So it could go either way.
We seen this with Brent Venables. I want to say was it last year? I want to say they started off pretty good and kind of faltered. Yeah. So yeah, I know the difference between this team and last team is obviously it goes down to quarterback. They're able to. He's able to produce a little bit better than what Jackson Arnold and even a Michael Hawkins could do. But hey, we'll see how this played out on the field. But like I said, I'm going with Ole Miss this game. I feel like they will bounce back, even with the spread almost being at almost a touchdown for Oklahoma, because Oklahoma is at home. So I guess they're factoring in that Oklahoma's defense is the strength of
Probably
the
a little
team.
more
It can
stout.
possibly stop
Yeah.
Ole Miss's offense for at least, like I said, those 2 possessions. So I guess that's what the odds makers are saying. But I'm gonna go with Lane Train because, like I said, they were so close last week. And one thing you don't want to do is make one loss turn into another loss because Ole Miss. You know what my favorite saying is: the 12-team playoff was created for the Penn States, the Ole Misses, the Miamis of the world. So, Ole Miss, if you want to stay in that chase, you're gonna have to win this game. And then I just turn it over to Finn.
As far as with Oklahoma, Ole Miss, it's gonna be a good one. But I think due to Latier being out, I think Oklahoma. If Lane doesn't go out there do anything crazy, like he always try to do, I think Ole Miss won't have a problem with this game. Like I said, with Latier being out, I don't see them beating Ole Miss, especially with Trinidad Chambers at quarterback and their high power offense. I don't think that Oklahoma can score enough without Latier to keep up with Ole Miss. So that's pretty much that. My take on that.
So here's the part where this is a rarity for me because I'm usually a front runner. And so today I'm actually gonna go with the underdog. I believe that if Materia is to make an appearance,
Well,
if he is helped,
technically, Ole Miss is the underdog.
yeah, underdog.
Technically,
Yeah, I got you.
yeah,
Well, yeah,
I
by
get you.
spread choice. But unpopular opinion, I think this is the game that again shows us who Lane really is, and I don't think there's not going to be a lot of adjustments to the defense in this week's practice. Um, and I think by the hairs of my chinny chin chin, Oklahoma sneaks out by 3, maybe a walk-off field goal, something like that. I think this is what rights the ship for Oklahoma. I don't think the rest of the slate after that will mean much. And I think in a couple weeks we'll look back at this game and say, "Oh man, that sucked that Ole Miss lost that game." If it happens, personally, I'm gonna take the home underdog. But I don't know. I guess we shall see. So I'm gonna go a little bit out of order. There's a method to the madness, and I want to talk about the night game first. The premier game for this week is the undefeated number 3 overall Texas A&M Aggies. It's been a long time coming since we saw Texas A&M at this kind of peak. Unfortunately, they do not host a home game this week. They go to Death Valley. LSU coming off that tough loss on the road to Vanderbilt. Looking to right the ship. It's a night game. It's in Death Valley. They are not favored. It is a 2.5-point spread. Texas A&M, who I watched a couple weeks ago, go on the road up to Notre Dame. They took down Notre Dame in a very tough game. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I like a lot of things that I see from Texas A&M. They're battle tested. They're strong willed. Their offense is sound. Their defense is sound. Marcel Reed, resilient, mobile quarterback. One of those guys that you definitely. I'm telling you guys now, if that's who we're lining up against in the SEC championship, we might be in trouble. Just because of his
Counting with you. I'm gonna let you finish, but
just
I'm
because of his
count off what you.
mobility.
Yeah,
But I think it's gonna be a really nice game. I think with the guys down there at LSU, Coach Brian Kelly, he needs this one more than anybody. I think this is where and we talk about it week to week. The directions that teams go after certain wins and losses really, really matters, and this is one that really, really matters because you don't get to host a game like of this magnitude very often. You just did so. Let's see. The best game that they hosted so far is this one, and then you take a break, and then you got to play Bama. So you really have no choice but to win this one because if you lose this one and you take a break
we'll go
and
to that
then you turn around and you face a piping hot Alabama, it's gonna be trouble. So with that, I'm gonna take the 3-point spread for Texas A&M. I'm gonna take Texas A&M for the win, and I'm gonna push them to 8-0 and lead them as one of the best teams in the country.
All I'm gonna say is guys like Harold Perkins, Patrick Payton, LSU defense, get ready. Blake Baker, you have to bring your A game as far as this game goes. Now me, it seems like Death Valley is still Death Valley, still one of the loudest venues in the country, especially at night. I'll take Penn State second, but we ain't on them right now. We see what they going through. They season ended 4 weeks ago after Oregon. But I'm gonna go. This ain't my upset watch pick, but I'm gonna go because I got another game for that one. But I'm gonna go LSU. I think Texas A&M. You know, if we're looking at terms of the NBA, I think Texas A&M is giving off the 2025 Cavaliers, 2015 Atlanta Hawks vibes. I think I'll win enough games, but as far as so I think they got this game, they get a bye week, and then they get Missouri. So on the flip side of what you were saying, Dre, is about LSU, A&M can't afford that either because Mizzou can easily come off a win versus Vandy, and I know we're gonna get into that next. Could easily come off a win against Vandy and roll into that game and try to knock down Texas A&M. But I'm gonna go LSU because I think that crowd. I'm not gonna go against that crowd. Like for some whatever, unless you Alabama, you don't fear that crowd because Alabama goes down there, especially with Miro. That's probably one of the teams that's happy Miro not lining up against them. But especially like saying a night game at Death Valley, you don't want to do that. And then like we seen what this rivalry has became over the years, especially with that 30 overtime game that they had, over exaggerated, about 7-8 years ago. But yeah, I'm gonna just take LSU. I know their offense struggles, but I think the defense can do what they did versus Florida, force Marcel Reed to turn the ball over. Cause I know Marcel Reed is very dynamic, but also they're gonna take away all the underneath and all the intermediate passing and force them to try to push their ball downfield. I think if Marcel Reed beats LSU with his arm, and I'm talking about down the field passes, I think they'll just tip their caps and be like, hey, he got us. But what you don't want to see is him running all over the place, him being able to check it down underneath, and them getting guys like Le'Veon Moss and Casey Concepcion and Terry Bussey getting all those guys going. That's what they don't want to see. And then as far as LSU, like at this point, some people are considering your season dead. You're at the bottom of the top 25. So what way to play spoiler to a team and potentially send them downward a spiral. We see what Brian Kelly is, like I said last week, gonna try to gaslight the media, whichever way, if they don't win. But I'm gonna take LSU, and I'm gonna take LSU. I'm gonna go 24-20 LSU.
Preach to us, big brother.
Far as with this game, if LSU can find the offense, I see them.
System.
I see them beating Texas A&M. Two reasons: one, Death Valley, and two, just came off of a loss to Vandy. They pissed off. Now they at home. They host Texas A&M. The defense gonna show up. As far as with Marcel Reed, we all know that they gonna have Perkins Jr. Spine him. They gonna have a host of other people. If they can cause some commotion with that, Texas A&M gonna struggle. To be honest, let me go look at Texas. Besides Notre Dame, who have they really played? To be honest, now they played Arkansas, they played Florida, but far as somebody with a actual
Those
strong
programs that are
defense,
looking for a coach.
who have they played defensively? So I think they meet their match. It's gonna be close. I would say it'd be a 3-point game, so like 27-24. If LSU's offense doesn't show up and defense gets worn out, it's gonna be a long night. But if they can pull off one of the miracles like they did 2022, Bama came to town and they beat Bama in overtime. Yeah, but if Ryan Kelly wants to even be considered to be the coach, continue to be a coach of LSU, he has to win. He got to. If he don't, he might well start packing, to be honest.
And what way for Mike Elko? Mike Elko Well, I would say this would be his second signature win, but his biggest, I want to say at least first SEC signature win, because he went to Notre Dame and got that win. And, you know, the way they're rating Notre Dame, they want Notre Dame to get back into the playoffs. And what they did last year, national runner-up. So I consider that a signature win. This can all, even though LSU is struggling, but not many people, where they say Death Valley where dreams come to die, not many people make it out that are alive. So A&M get that game. This could be another signature win for Mike Elko. And I don't know why his name is being tied to Penn State. I don't think they got A&M money, so I think they keep him. So
Yeah.
there's that. But yeah, and I think we can close that, put a bow on that, and move on.
Yeah, man.
To the-
So last but not
Unless
least,
you-
and I know,
Unless
yeah,
you want to get into the upset watch, or and then we can close out with
which I was gonna close with the upset watch because I got something
That's-
interesting on that.
respect.
I got something interesting on that. I think I got something outside of the box on that one too.
Yeah.
But last but not least, and College Game Day will now make another appearance in the SEC venue that features not our last two opponents, but two of our last out of the last three games that we played, two of our last opponents in Vandy and Mizzou. Diego Pavia still getting wonderful raving reviews and remarks as far as him being propelled into a Heisman campaign. I got to be honest, I think this is a really highly underrated game for a 2:30 game. I think as much as we will be paying attention to our own game, I think this one cannot go remiss. This is a top 15 game.
I hate that they're actually
that it's at the same time.
Yes.
This is between two SEC teams that are 6-1. And if you had told me 7 weeks ago that in 7 weeks Vanderbilt and Missouri are going to play at a 2:30 game and they're both going to be 6-1, I would have told you to shut your mouth, get out my face, and what's Alabama record going to be? Because if they're if they're both 6-1, that means we both lost to them. Nonetheless, we are the one in both of their L columns, but that doesn't take away, and I said this a few weeks ago about Vandy, I said the same thing about Mizzou. It doesn't take away from either one of these teams. I think both of these teams, when you don't see them from the lens of them playing Alabama, they're great teams. And so that Vanderbilt is a 3-point favorite at home. As we've seen last year, as we've seen again last week, Vanderbilt plays absolutely amazing at home. And I know they are redoing their stadium, if I'm not wrong. So I know it's not all the way up to par to where it is going to be eventually. But I think this is a really good stepping stone for Vanderbilt's culture. We've seen Vanderbilt through some really tough times. We had a guy that went there and we saw him try to change that culture. And even for him, in a bowl win and everything, it's really tough to change the culture there in Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia, this is his last hurrah. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I am. Now that I think I'm past the Diego Pavia anger, let's anchor down and get a win this weekend. And let's go ahead and propel Vanderbilt closer into the top 10. And I think considering what happens with the Ole Miss Oklahoma game, probably into the top 8, safely into the top 8. Vanderbilt, who then after that would take on the likes of Auburn. Well, I'm sorry. They'll travel next week and go to Texas and come back to Auburn, play a home game against Kentucky, and end their season on the road against Tennessee. And so, I mean, I know we've talked about it with, I was about to say, I know we've talked about it with a lot of teams, but man, this race towards the end of who's actually going to end up in the SEC championship is going to be really interesting. And every week we get more and more punches being thrown and somebody's getting those kidney shots. And so I think this is the one that knocks Mizzou out of the SEC championship conversation.
Yeah. This is funny to me, man. Who would have thought Vanderbilt in Missouri will probably have one of the most old school SEC type of matchups. Two teams that want to be physical and run the ball. You got, like I said, you can say one of the hottest stories in college football in Vanderbilt. You got, I want to say, a consistent winner in Missouri because they won 9-10 games last year. And Coach Drink, Clark Lee, you just got a matchup of head coaches. This is going to be 4 quarters of fun. This is going to be I don't think this will be a high-scoring game at all, depending on the way these two teams play. Now, I think this is one of these games where if a team is up 7 and you turn the ball over, a 10-point lead, and you just control the clock will win you this game. With that being said, and this is also in reference to Ole Miss and Oklahoma, this is one of those elimination type games myself. Because then, like, you got to look. We already just announced Vandy slate. When we spoke on A&M, A&M has that bye, and then they got to go to Missouri. So there's that. All right. So to keep your season alive, at least for another week, as far as it goes, for a playoff chase standpoint and strengthening your resume, I'm with you too, Dre. I'm gonna go Vanderbilt, and I'm gonna go Vanderbilt 20, Missouri 17.
17.
Very
I like
low
it.
scoring.
I like it.
As far as with this game, I just simply have Vanderbilt winning simply due to Missouri's quarterback. He cannot really throw the ball. Hardy is good, but the way Vanderbilt's playing since the Alabama loss, and you just had a big victory over LSU, I don't see him losing to Missouri right now.
I mean,
No, I don't.
we only got one game sample size post Alabama, so it ain't
Yeah.
like this.
No.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but this ain't
Yeah.
like
But
3 weeks post Alabama loss, and then like, okay, yeah, Vandy out here whooping ass. Nah, this ain't that. But I get what you're saying.
What you're saying is like they're gonna use this momentum to carry them past Missouri now, and that's why I'm taking them, is because I think the momentum from
The LSU
the momentum
game.
from the LSU game, and then turning around and sleeping in your own bed again, and getting up and seeing your own fans again, and having that crowd routed up again, and you're a top 10 team at home. Man, that's a situation where a 2:30 game helps, because you want everybody to be there, be excited, not be too drunk, not to be too belligerent. I need you there and focused. And so, yeah, I don't see it. I don't see Missouri. They couldn't beat us at home, so I don't see it.
There's that. So
Yeah.
that's what I said.
So
Anchor
that
down, man.
So that poses that's gonna put a bow on all our predictions as far as the games that we are really highlighting this week. And so that poses a question that also can be answered down in the chat. As far as who we think is on upset watch this week, and I'm going to go way veer left and put somebody on upset alert, not because of anything other than what it's going to mean to their season. Texas has to travel to Mississippi State. And I think that is a trap. And with 2 losses already on the season and only 1 in the conference, get those cowbells ready, boys and girls, because I think this will mark Texas, Sarkisian, and Arch's 3rd loss on the season, officially eliminating from playoff contention, officially eliminating them from SEC play. Again, I'm going to keep punching myself in the face. I predicted something completely different from Texas. But now that I've had a chance to watch them over a couple of weeks, I watched them. Who did they play? They played Kentucky last week, right?
Yes.
Knockdown,
everybody
drag out
knows.
game.
Ask Georgia about going on the road to Kentucky.
Kentucky is a tough place to be in. And so with that, another really rough, tough environment for Arch to be in. Yeah, that's who I got on upset watch this week. You know, I think we covered a lot of games, but that's the one that I looked at and I said, number 22 is the one that's about to be out of there.
But you can also say last week, you say last week's game versus Kentucky was a trap game. But I'm going to go with this. You show up, against a rivalry, your favorite heavily, I want to say almost by 4 touchdowns. This program just moved on from their coach. You take the field Saturday, you're down big. You fight your way back in the game. You're a 4th down conversion away from ending the game. You convert that. You get into the red zone and you piss down your leg. And I guess I want to say you were looking ahead to this matchup, a game where I thought you would come in undefeated and you will have college game day in your city that week. But instead, they're going to go 3.5 hours away to Nashville, Tennessee. This game here, I will put the South Florida Bulls on upset alert because I feel like Memphis went in dragging, thinking a C-plus game was going to beat UAB. No matter what we do, just win, baby. Shout out to Al Davis. And let's get to this game right here, which potentially could have been another elimination game. And this is an elimination game for South Florida, but could it put Memphis back on par to being the highest ranked group of 5 team? Because we seen, ESPN had the teasers with the little bracket they put out this week. South Carolina is the 12. They would have to go on the road to Athens, Georgia. So you know what I'm saying? And could Alex Golis take that job for Florida? We don't know yet, but I will label him as my front runner to take that Florida job, but we will see. But yes, I am putting South Florida Bulls on upset watch in Memphis, Tennessee, because I think they got to get that sour taste out of their mouth. And hopefully maybe the American Conference Championship see these two teams down the road again. And possibly, like I said, Memphis can get themselves back into that playoff chase with this win and winning out. But yeah, that's my pick.
And then on top of that, I got Memphis too. Then on top of that, Chris Brown ain't performing in Memphis. They got to get a focus show. They got to. When South Florida come in town, they got to. They lost to UAB last week because they were still hyped from Breezy. Now they come back to Memphis, South Florida in town. They got to do it. They got to do it for their folks. They already mad. He canceled the show. They got to put on the show for him. Like you said,
I ain't gonna lie. I heard through the rumor mill. I heard through the rumor mill some of the Memphis players was down in Birmingham tonight at the YB joint. So,
but like that's crazy because like I initially was gonna go with Iowa State over BYU, but I was like, nah, Memphis. I'm gonna go with what happened. Like Memphis got to shake back. This is bounce back week for Memphis. So yeah, that's why I went with Memphis. Yeah, but I initially was going to go Iowa State over BYU because Iowa State can very well, and they lost 2 straight games. And BYU, we know how BYU is one of those teams that, do we believe in them? Do we not believe in them? The nation is cute, but nah, we don't really want to. But yeah, but that's why, but like I said, Memphis, like they said about Florida State, all you had to do was beat Virginia. No matter how you did it, you would have had game day in Tallahassee. That's the consensus feeling. And like I said, I feel like all Memphis had to do was beat UAB. My feeling was game day would have showed up for that type of game. Missouri Vanderbilt, big game. But I feel like we were talking about last week in last episodes, Dre, the story of 2 teams that are unknown to the masses would have sold for game day. And what bigger game than that? Yeah, and we just lost Finn. So we can go ahead and get up out of here. But yeah. That was my take. That's why I went with that one.
Excellent show. Excellent week. Looking forward to Saturday. It's Wednesday right now. We just got a few more sleeps and then we can get to South Carolina. The SEC is hot right now. It's a hotbed all over college football. We appreciate all our viewers, man. Not just for the Let Me Say This platform, but of course, elephant in the room. The elephants are all over.
I mean, it's all under the same umbrella. Let me say this is like the big brother, and then elephant in the room is little bro.
And more on the way. Much more on the way. But as always, man, we appreciate all the support that we can get. We get a lot of support from people that we know. I know I'm here monologuing, but man, we get a lot of support from people we know. We really appreciate that. If you watching this right now, just like, share, and subscribe if you're new, man. I'm Dre. This is Zay.
We lost Finn, but we send the best regards.
And this week's episode is sponsored by Money Mike Enterprises, man. Money Mike Enterprises.
One time for Chaos Entertainment, man. He talking about some Money Mike Enterprises, but one time for Chaos Entertainment. Once upon a time ago in my earlier years, I did used to throw down on that microphone in a different way, but this is my second love. Music was my first love. Sports is my second love, so there's that. But like Dre said, this is the Elephant in the Room podcast, and we're going to sign out. We're going to get up out of here.
Roll Tide. Once and for always. Oh, what that boy say? Roll Tide.
And we done. There we go.